Hello everyone and welcome to a new video dedicated to our beloved Snoopy and the world of Peanuts. In the November 21st, 1950 Peanut strip, Charles Schulz gives us a lesson steeped in irony and humor on a theme as fascinating as it is complex: humility. A universal value, an ideal as lauded as it is difficult to truly embody. Schulz, with his subtle line and sharp humor, shows us that, often, our desire to be recognized as virtuous leads us to fall into contradiction. The scene features Patty and Shermy, two characters who in the early years of the strip represented archetypes of everyday American childhood. Through tight dialogue and an explosive ending, Schulz takes us on a journey that invites us to laugh at our weaknesses while causing us to reflect on how difficult it is to really be what we proclaim to be. This episode is a perfect example of Schulz's genius in condensing, in just a few vignettes and with disarming simplicity, a truth that concerns everyone. Humility is perhaps the most paradoxical of virtues, because it dissolves as soon as we boast that we possess it. Now, let us dive into the strip and discover together how Patty and Shermy bring this human conflict to the stage with irony and lightness. In the first vignette, Patty is standing in front of Shermy, in a position that conveys confidence and determination. She has one hand with a pointed index finger, a typical gesture of someone who wants to emphasize an important point. With a proud look, she proclaims, "I'll have you know I'm plenty humble." The contradiction is immediate and deliberately comic. Patty's tone is anything but humble, and the way she poses betrays a kind of pride in declaring herself virtuous. Schulz uses this paradox to immediately grab the reader's attention, appealing to a universal truth. The more we strive to show that we possess a quality, the more we risk showing the opposite. Patty's expression, with wide eyes and an almost triumphant smile, emphasizes the comedy of the scene. It is clear from the outset that Patty is not really interested in humility per se, but rather in the recognition that this virtue might bring her. As typical of the style of early Peanut strips, the background is minimal, almost absent, leaving all the space for the characters and their exchange. This approach focuses attention on the dialogue and expressions of the protagonists, who are the beating heart of the narrative. In the second vignette, Shermy, caught off guard by Patty's statement, immediately revels. His face is serious, and his gesture is direct. He clenches his fists, a visual symbol of his dissent. In an accusatory tone, he replies, "You are not." Here Schulz highlights a second paradox. Shermy, in an attempt to refute Patty, adopts an equally unhumble attitude. His determined expression and tone suggest a willingness to assert his point of view at any cost, making him, in turn, an ironic figure. This vignette underscores a key element of human dynamics. We are often quick to judge others, not realizing that we are making the same mistake we criticize. The interaction between Patty and Shermy thus becomes a mirror of our own contradictions. In the third vignette, the climax of tension is reached here. Patty, now out of arguments, decides to take drastic action. With a swift movement, she pushes Shermy to the ground. Schulz depicts the action in a stylized, almost caricatured way, with dynamic lines that emphasize Patty's sudden, impulsive gesture. Shermy's expression, falling to the ground looking surprised and pained, adds a note of comic levity. There is no real violence in the scene, but the contrast between the noble topic of discussion and Patty's less than noble behavior amplifies the ironic effect. This vignette is a masterpiece of narrative synthesis. Without the need for words, Schulz communicates Patty's utter failure to demonstrate the humility she proclaims. The physical gesture becomes a visual metaphor for the human difficulty of maintaining consistency between what we say and what we do. In the fourth vignette, the closing of the strip is a triumph of irony. Patty, turning her back on Shermy, walks away looking annoyed and satisfied, proclaiming loudly, "Nobody can tell me I'm not humble." The contrast between Patty's words and her behavior is the highlight of the comedy. Her emphatic tone and smug expression emphasize the absurdity of the situation. Schulz closes the circle with a bitter laugh, leaving the reader to ponder. How often, in trying to demonstrate equality, do we end up betraying it? Insights, trivia, and anecdotes. Humility in the Peanuts. This strip is one of the earliest examples of Schulz's use of peanuts to explore universal themes through everyday situations. Humility, here treated with irony, would return in many other strips, often as a contrasting element between the characters' behavior and their statements. Patty and Shermie, minor but essential characters. Although over time they would be overshadowed by characters such as Charlie Brown, Lucy, and Snoopy, Patty and Shermie play a crucial role in the early years of the Peanuts. They represent archetypal figures that allow Schulz to explore simple but profound themes, creating a bridge between the everyday and the philosophical. Stylistic simplicity as a narrative tool. Schulz's visual minimalism, with neutral backgrounds and essential lines, allows all attention to be focused on the characters and their dialogue. This choice makes the strip accessible to everyone, regardless of cultural or historical context, and contributes to its longevity. Humor as a mirror of human weaknesses. This strip is a perfect example of how Schulz manages to combine humor and reflection. Patty and Shermie's behavior not only makes people laugh, but also invites the reader to look in the mirror and recognize their own contradictions.
If you enjoyed yourselves, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the little bell to stay updated, and see you next, friends.